Natalie Prospere is an entrepreneur and a music manager who is the founder of her own management company called Friends Only. She manages superstar producer D Mile, who's responsible for Could Have Been by Her featuring Bryson Tiller. I absolutely love that song. And she's also the manager of superstar songwriter Varren Wade, who's responsible for Trippin'. LMA. Love it. Natalie most definitely has an incredible career, and I'm excited to see what she does next. So, without further ado, tap in and catch some gems with Natalie Prospere.
I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, born and raised in Beantown. Growing up, I had an array of things that I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to be an astronaut at a point in time. For a long time, I wanted to be a lawyer. I've always wanted to fight in the interest of people. So I wanted to be a lawyer. I ended up going to college and majoring in sociology. So then, when I was in college, social work was my focus. But growing up, being a lawyer was something that I was sure I was going to do. I grew up listening to a lot of gospel music. My dad is a bishop, so I wasn't even really allowed to listen to a lot of secular music in my home outside of Bob Marley, and Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson, quote unquote clean music. But I grew up listening to a lot of gospel. My parents are from the Caribbean, so reggae music has always been a part of my music taste. Even in the gospel music that I did listen to, it was like reggae gospel music. So a lot of gospel, a lot of reggae. I've always loved R&B. I used to have to sneak to listen to it, but R&B, and I'm a real hip hop girl. So I would say gospel, reggae, hip hop, and R&B. I don't know if anybody remembers Bradley's. It was a department store, but I was a cashier at Bradley's. As soon as I turned 15 and a half and could get a work permit, I went and got a job, started working at Bradley's. My music career started in, I would say 2010, when I came to visit a friend of mine that I had met. I'd always dabbled in the entertainment business. I managed a dance group in college when I was 18, 19 years old. And they were actually pretty successful. And that was my first experience in entertainment. But the music business, I didn't really get into it until 2010, when one of my best friends from college, A-Rod, decided to come visit me in LA when I decided I was going to stay here for a while. Not quite sure what I was going to do here, but I just felt the pull to be here. And A-Rod moved. He hadn't even moved. He came out here to visit and ended up writing songs that were really impressive, and decided to move here after some things started to move forward in that aspect for him. And he co-wrote The Way with Seven for Ariana Grande, and now had this music career and didn't trust anyone else to manage him. So I kind of was just, as his friend, and wanted to protect him, and him, not knowing really anyone else that he could trust, we kind of just jumped into it together. So that's when I just accepted the term manager as it was given to me by him, and started rolling from there. So I'd say May 2010. My family has always been supportive. I think I've always kind of been, my mom calls me eccentric, like an out of the box kind of thinker. So to this day, I don't know if they really know exactly what it is that I do. My mom has always been super supportive. My dad is where we get all of our musical, it's where our musical background comes from. As a pastor, bishop, member of clergy, I'm sure he would have preferred that I pursue a career in gospel music. But he has always, I stay out of trouble. I ain't never been in anything that would bring any kind of shame to our family. I'm just out here hustling. So I think that he respects it. But if he had it his way, I would have a more traditional job for sure, with more financial security, health insurance, and all of the things that Caribbean parents want their children to have as adults. Yeah, but they've been supportive, thankfully. Especially shout out to my mom. My mom has been supportive emotionally, financially, before I started making any money, when I was just trying to figure this whole thing out. I went to, like I said, I went to college, and I got a degree. I worked for the state of New Jersey for 3 years as a social worker. So I didn't need financial help from my parents until I came out here. And as much as my mom didn't understand why I would leave a job with security and a salary to come out here and kind of just figure things out, there were times she for sure had to hold me down. And she has, so I'm super thankful for her. One of the moments that will always stand out for me is when I found out that Camper was going to be on Jay-Z's Magna Carta album. As I mentioned earlier, hip hop is one of the genres of music that I really delved into, especially as a teenager and in college. I was all Rockefeller, everything, all Jay Z, all of the big. Yeah, I was, so being on Jay Z's album was definitely a moment for me, getting that email from Sean Carter Enterprises and calling Camper like, yo, did you know? So that's a highlight. And I absolutely have to say the Lucky Daye, the whole Lucky Daye experience, um, working with someone that I've been friends with, him and D-Mile and Kersey and the whole squad, and literally taking it from like no one knowing anything about him to it being, something that people really respect in the R&B space. Um, I'm very proud of that project as well. So I would say being on Jay Z's album, having Camper on Jay Z's album, and uh, releasing Painted, Lucky Daye's debut project, 4 times Grammy nominated, out the gate. Yeah, that's a moment. That was a moment for us. These days, I prioritize the first thing I do in the morning before most times, I'm trying to make it, more of a habit, but I take time to pray, to meditate, to start my day with gratitude, and just thankful to be alive. Um, and then I make time to meditate. I'm really into books, so I spend time reading in the mornings. Um, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, I make time to work out. But these days, I really do try and prioritize time for self care, because in my over 10 years in this business, the vast majority of the time, I've just been hustling and grinding. I used to wake up in the morning and just get straight to my emails, straight to my phone calls and texts. And like, when you're working in this business in the capacity that we do, and there is no salary attached to your job, you take on there's a sense of urgency and hustle that you tend to have, because if you ain't out there getting the checks, they ain't coming. So, how I manage my time now is, I try to keep my work week to a Monday through Friday thing. I think, we've been taught to believe that being in the music industry means that you have to be available 24/7, and, you're going to miss out on opportunities if you don't answer that call or you don't get to that email in time. And, I've just learned that the things that are for you, you can't escape. So, as long as we're working diligently and we're being intentional with the things that we're doing, that whole hustle mentality, staying up till 5 in the morning, taking pride in the fact that you're getting no sleep, like that's out. That's not even, uh, it's counterproductive time management for me has become a lot more taking care of me and my needs, and then giving the overflow to the music industry. If you don't do it that way, this thing will absolutely run you into the ground. And I don't need to be looking old before my time. The role of a manager, I I always say varies based on the client and what the client needs. The kind of manager that I am, if you speak to anyone that I've managed from the beginning to now, I'm a very hands on, maybe too hands on. I get involved in everything. Um, you know, but I would say for the most part, it's creative people tend to want to focus on creating and don't want to deal with like the logistics side of things. So from coordinating their schedules to booking travel, I play more of a, you know, I play several roles. I feel like I do a lot of work that a publisher should do. I'm a lot of times the guys will tell you like I'm putting them onto artists that they didn't even know about before. I brought it to them, and then they get excited and work with them based on because they trust my ear. So even that like A&R work and just being in the loop of what's going on. Ultimately, your job as a manager is to facilitate. You're the buffer between the creative and the rest of the world. Again, they don't really want to talk to their attorneys, their publishers, the label people, marketing, publicists. So it's like filtering, you're the filter between them and the rest of the world. And for me, ultimately, it's about creating opportunities for us to earn money. Um, so a manager, when you're talking about producers and songwriters versus an artist, because I manage, all three. Obviously, the role changes based on what the needs are. Artists require a lot more than producers and songwriters. It's a way more demanding role as a manager to oversee an artist's career because there's just so many more people involved. There's so many more people to talk to on a day-to-day basis. Um, but I think the role of a manager, it's your I approach it as more a partner. um the term manager, if you're talking about like a retail store, it's like you oversee the store, you're responsible for everything in the store. And it's kind of the same in a situation when you're working in the music industry. But I always tell my clients like, actually, I'm not, you guys are the boss, I work for you. A manager of a store, the employees, they work for the company, but they're like under the manager. And I'm like, no, you guys are actually steering the ship. I'm here to help guide and advise, but ultimately, like the decisions are on you. This is your business. This is your career. Um, and I'm here to support. So the role of a manager, like I said, can vary based on what the needs are of the clients that you represent. But I kind of take on, it's a 360 kind of thing for me, um, to just kind of jump in and help move whoever I'm working with their career forward. That's ultimately the goal, is moving forward and progressing their career and making money. I know a lot of creatives who, especially the ones who are more seasoned and have been around for a long time, they don't necessarily need the traditional management that, someone who has no understanding of the music business, has no understanding of contracts, has no understanding of, or has no relationships, no network. I think they have a lot more to gain from having a manager. Um, but I encourage people like yourself and, my songwriter, producer, artist friends who a lot of times they get frustrated with their managers because they're doing the manager's jobs. It's like if you're not helping put sessions together, if you're not, you know, bringing new ideas to the table, or then what exactly are you giving someone a percentage of your business for? Um, so I would say that a manager, isn't something people that are looking for managers, I'm always like, ideally, you want that relationship to be a natural one and something that kind of just comes to you. Because when you're seeking, yeah, when you're seeking management, a lot of times I find people that are seeking managers think that when they get a manager, their career is going to take off. And it never, literally never happens like that. It's like there's so many other factors that play a part in the success of someone's career. And there are people with no managers who are handling their business. I would say, honestly, more important than a manager is a good attorney when you're doing music business. I say get your attorney, make sure you have a dope attorney first and foremost. And managers, it's interesting. Like a lot of people come to me about management and it's like, nah, there's no good managers out here. And I'm like, well, a lot of times some of the best managers are people that you're friends with because nobody I didn't know the music business before I got into it. It's about finding someone who has your best interest at heart. And the issue with the music business is when you start actively pursuing managers, it makes you like your food. Your food. And a lot of managers out here take advantage of people that feel like they need them. And yeah, I see managers that are taking 30 and 40% from artists, and they're not really bringing anything real to the table. And that's why a lot of people end up at the end of their management relationships having a lot of resentment um, because you've now given such a chunk of your earnings to someone who is not deserving of it. So I know that was a lot, but the management thing is always interesting to me because people really think that that's the key. And it's like, no, you probably want to be out here building your own relationships, your own network, um, and not relying on any person outside of yourself to do shit for you. Anyone coming in to manage you should only add to what you already have built and are building for yourself. I think we all have to become more accountable for the business that we're doing. It's not being in the music industry. You can be in music if you love music. You can make music for fun. If you're making a career decision to be in the music industry, I think you have there's a responsibility on you to understand the business. Um, so, the conversations that we're having amongst ourselves, in my peer group, it's like, yeah, everybody's like in their last option periods. It's like, oh yeah, we're not doing any more co-pub deals. That's just not even, it doesn't even make sense to. Yeah, co-pub deals are done for. And, we have to also learn that sometimes they're always going to be able to put a check in front of you. Of course they are. They're making a shit ton of money. So they're always going to be able to say, here's the advance that I can give you. But until you have an understanding of what you're giving up in exchange for that money that most of us are going to blow and do bullshit with anyway, we should really, consider what the terms are, and what am I gaining here? What does this company have to offer me? Because a lot of times, with publishers and they sell you on this idea that they're going to put you in the rooms with these big artists and coordinate all these sessions for you and be actively working on your behalf. And once you sign the dotted line, half the time the people that signed you ain't even at the company anymore within a year. So, we just have to be conscious of the business that we're doing, what our goals are, what we intend to get out of any of these given situations, and stop giving up so much of our ownership and our power to people who don't deserve it. Like, we should be earning off of our work, ladies and gentlemen. These people are sitting in their offices doing nothing and earning everything. They're on salaries, they have insurance there, and we're out here struggling, going to 12 sessions a day to make no money. No. Yeah. So once you know better, it's on you whether or not you choose to do better. And when we talk about the kind of business that we've done in ignorance, versus people like us who are seasoned and been in it for years and we know better. It's like, it's on us now to make better decisions for our business, for our future, for the kids that are coming up after us, challenging these companies, pushing back on terms, pushing back, saying, no, actually, this isn't fair. This is the way it really should be done. And if you are not willing to do business in the way that we have deemed appropriate for what we're doing, then we just don't do business. And being able to walk away from things too. I think in this business, no's are more important than yeses. It establishes value. The internet gives us access to each other in a way that we didn't really have before, which is why I think the role of a publisher or a label was so much more, I don't want to say important. I don't want you guys to feel like you're not important, but we relied on them to connect those dots. Whereas a lot of times now, the artists that we're working on are really the homies. It's really like our own relationships that we've developed. I believe in like just organic. If you're doing good work, and you're networking and you're around the right people, the music industry is actually not that big. There's not really that many people in it, and it's not hard to get to anyone. But a lot of times that it's relationships. I would say 95% of the time it's about the relationships that you have. So as a manager, I am I'm friends with a lot of managers. I'm friends with a lot of artists. And when you do dope work and you're good at what you do, people want to work with you. So I've been out of the chasing placements game for a very long time. We don't chase placements. I don't really even sit with labels. And I think it's about creating with people that you organically like vibe with and creating good music, putting that music into the universe, which is going to create more opportunity. And, I believe in really rocking that way. The whole, sending records over. I can't tell you, there's such a small percentage of placements that I've gotten over the past 10 years that have come from me sending a record to an A&R or anything like that. It's literally like a lot of the work that we do comes from like literally just getting in the studio with people that we like and doing what you do best, which is create. So yeah, I would say when it comes to the placements thing, it's a lot of times, again, people are chasing after the same artist. Everybody wants to be on these 5 albums, that are coming out. And it's like, yeah, but there's other dope artists with budgets that need you actually more than those other people do. So, seeking those kinds of like situations out and really working on things that you love. Work on music that you love. Work with artists that you really believe in. A lot of times people are doing sessions and taking sessions, for whatever potential check. But it's like, yeah, are you going to be proud of that record when it comes out though? Do you want to play that for your friends and your family? And is it representative of the work that you do and what you want to put into the world? So yeah, I believe in working with people that you organically click with creatively, personally, and I believe the right situations will flourish when you put the right energy and vibe around it. Everyone's trying to get on those, A-list artists, whatever. It's like, it's a rat race. You're better off finding people that are kind of your peers and on the level that you are and building something dope with them that you guys can elevate together. And then those are the people that stay loyal to you. Hopefully. Hopefully those are the people, but in our experience, again, when you're dealing with character too, and you're working with people with good character, you don't have to really worry about certain things. It's just not that you only work with them or they don't go on to work with other people eventually, but you've already set, that's like home base. You set up your own home base and you keep going to the people because I like to make money with people that I like. I don't want to make money. I don't want to sit at the ASCAP Awards at a table with people that I don't even like. When I turn up, I want it to be with my friends. When we're celebrating, it has to be with people that I genuinely like. So if you're creating from that place and you're doing sessions and you're like, that's what is going to manifest. I honestly don't believe that an art like you become like you are an artist or you're not. And songwriters, I don't, we allow people to box us into, it's like being a manager. It's like that's the term that people associate with the work that I do, but I do so many things. And a lot of times, songwriters, or what people call songwriters, are artists who didn't have support and didn't have anyone really that believed in them as an artist. So they love to create music and it's a part of who they are. So they're going to write for other people. But with the songwriters turned artists that I work with, they were always artists. They were never not artists. They, for various reasons, pivoted into songwriting. A lot of times just being frustrated, trying to get people to hear them and see them and believe in them. So I see, when I hear people talk about like, oh, I want to become an artist. It's like, if you're trying to be an artist, you're not an artist. An artist just is. That's something like you were sent here to create, like, and these labels and these boxes that we put ourselves in, or that we allow the music industry of the world to put us in, we got to break out of those things. A lot of time I see people overthinking the whole transition from songwriting to artists. And it's like, no, you make great records for other people. You make great records for yourself. It may not look the way that it does when you're writing for other people, but you are an artist. You ain't trying to be an artist. You are one. You're painting a picture. You're painting for other people. You paint for yourself. It should be a natural. I wouldn't even say it's an evolution. It's just an existence. Artists just are. So yeah, it when the right things align, people, start to pay attention. But Lucky has always been as dope as he is. He's always been, and obviously you grow and you become more seasoned in your writing and your performance or whatever. But yeah, songwriting, the artists are songwriters. So songwriters are artists. It's interchangeable. Like songwriters are artists. So if you decide that you want to be an artist in the way that you want to release your own records, you take the necessary steps to do that, and you build a team and people around you that believe in your artistry in that capacity, and you roll that way. But yeah, songwriters wanting to become artists, it's like, no, you already are. You are, and you just decide how you want your art to be released, through someone else's voice or your own. I think a publishing deal should be considered. I think, once you have records that are out, released, and earning, there's obviously different kinds of pub deals that you can do. But the truth is, most of us don't have the know-how, the software, the technology, a lot of things to collect our earnings. And that is where I think most people see value in pub deals, is like, okay, somebody has to collect my money, because we all know that royalties come in the various forms and coming in from various territories. And I think like the admin, that's why I'm so big on admin deals. It's like, no, I don't necessarily want the responsibility of finding all this money. I would much prefer someone that does this to track down all our money. But I'll be honest, like the traditional cold pub deal, I think is an archaic business model that everyone should be looking at, including publishers, at changing. It's a whole different world. Streaming makes it a different world. even again, the internet alone just makes it a different world. So um, I think that when you have music out that is earning, it's in your interest to have someone collecting that money for you. Um, but I am going to go out on a limb and say I think that traditional co-pub deals are a thing of the past that we should probably not be doing moving forward. Split disputes. When you're working with your friends, friendship is rooted in like you wanting to see each other do well. So as a manager, 9 times out of 10, I'm not in a session when these songs are being created. So when a split dispute comes up, it's like, all right, are we really going to sit on a call and bust down every lyric and every melody and well, I wrote this because first of all, the spirit behind that ain't right. The spirit behind that is not, you know, I wouldn't say that it's not right. It just is always interesting to me how people just get amnesia after the fact. It's like, so now you don't remember what you did and didn't contribute. I see situations where there are friends who are songwriters, and whenever they do a session, no matter who writes what and how much they wrote, they're splitting it because they just have enough of an established relationship and trust in each other. That's like, yo, you're giving your best. I'm giving my best on any given day. My best might be better than your best, but we're both doing our best to make this record, as good as it can be. So ideally, it's like just an understanding that you have with the people you're creating with going into the session. But if you're in sessions with people that you don't really know like that, and obviously the more people involved, the more tricky splits get because a lot of times publishing and how much of a split, how much you're getting in splits is ultimately translating into dollars and cents. And people have families to take care of. A lot of times it's not even personal. It's like people are going to try to get as much as they can get in their publishing splits because that determines how much money they're going to earn. But again, when you're working with your friends and you all want to see each other do well, those conversations become, sometimes they're not even necessary. It's just like, this is what it is. Thankfully, like I said, because of the way we kind of do our business, we're working with friends. So if there is any kind of discrepancy, a lot of times it's like, you just talk it out. It's like, well, I had this track already done when I came to the studio versus we all created something together. So the split should look this way. I believe in just doing fair business and that there is a way to do that. But it definitely makes those conversations easier when you're dealing with people who genuinely want well for you as much as they do themselves. There are so many kinds of record deals that are being done these days, and I think that the labels are conscious that now we know better and we want more stake in what we're doing and more ownership. So the way that we're even negotiating these deals is changing. But I think that it depends on what your goals are as an artist. There are people who, a lot of times it does come down to finance. It's like people that have brown paper bag money behind them typically they don't tend to be rushing into giving away their ownership to these companies because most people are signing deals because they need their project funded. So it depends on what your goals are and how quickly. The machine is the machine, and we can't take away the truth of what that looks like and what that means. It pushes you because they're pumping money into it, and it's even more than money. It's just the way that it's set up, the way that the system is set up. Being signed to a major label can give you an advantage over, doing it the independent way. But then there's also a lot of situations. You go to any given label's roster, you're going to see a ton of artists who ain't doing anything. So being signed to a label also does not mean that your career is going to boom. So it's about identifying what your goals are and what you're hoping to accomplish, kind of look at the next, I would say, 4 to 5 years of your career. And not everybody wants to be Chris Brown. Some people are cool with people not even really knowing them when they go to the store. They just want to earn money doing what they love to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a hit on the radio, or, some people don't care about that. It's about, what you want out of this business. So I'd say, when you're considering doing a record deal, it's not something to ever rush into. I would say, honestly, do as much as you can on your own before you start giving shit away to other people. Anything that you're giving away to other people as far as ownership of your intellectual property needs to make absolute sense for you business wise. I think a lot of times people just rush into doing deals, once again, rushing into hiring a manager, whatever, because they think that that's going to be the game changer. And unfortunately, once again, 9 out of 10 artists that you talk to signed to major labels are very unhappy. They're not making money because they don't own their shit. And their label, in a good situation, you do have a team of people inside the building that are going hard for you. But oftentimes, no. Oftentimes, if things don't work as quickly as they want it to, you end up falling into the developing act category, and they're not trying to really put anything into you, because ultimately these labels are here to make money. They do not care about you, and that's just a fact. So it's not something that I would rush into. I believe in doing as much groundwork as possible on your own, because it only gives you more leverage when you do come to the table. Also, let them come look for you. When they start looking for you, it puts you in a powered position to negotiate the kind of deal that you want. When you start running around trying to get a deal and you running around all these labels trying to sell yourself to them, you're almost already losing. There's no song without lyric and melody. So I don't even understand how this is an acceptable way to do business. I really do not get it. We're kind of just subjected to the industry standard that they've created. But I think that we are in position now to start challenging some of those things. And even as a manager, it isn't something that we necessarily have fought for in the past, but it's definitely something that the conversations, and once again, it helps when you work with your friends. Because when you're friends with the artist and you're friends with their manager and you're friends with, they want to see you. Once again, friendship is rooted in wanting to see that person do well. So the conversations are always easier to have when they're with your friends. But if you are waiting for the music industry to give you anything, you are never going to see it. They're never going to give you what you're worth. So obviously, that a lot of times is determined by what you've done and your resume and how established you are. But I think that it's a conversation. You set the precedent for how you want your business to look. So if this is your standard, it's like, no, this is when I write songs, this is what I'm going to need. You can go into situations being very clear about that. And it's like, well, if that's not something that we can agree to, then let's not even waste each other's time, because this is how I do my business. So with the points thing, it's like, if that's what you are deciding that you are setting as your standard, then that's just it. And people that can't adhere to that just don't get to work with you. I want to quit every day. Yeah. If I allow my feelings to determine what I do, oh yeah, I would have quit this many times, just because like many things, the music industry is a reflection of the society that we live in. So there's just so many things that don't sit well with me spiritually. A lot of times, depending on, once again, the way that you decide to operate in this business, you find your integrity, your morals compromised because you're kind of forced into this very there's a lot of greed, there's just a lot of ego, and now you find yourself combating all of these things that are outside of like who you are. And if I were to just choose the people that I deal with and interact with on a day-to-day basis, they look a certain way, they carry themselves a certain way, their hearts are tuned a certain way. And then you find yourself in this business and it's like, oh, y'all are not like me. You guys are not like me. Again, it's so rooted in ego and competition and people trying to swag off on each other, and you know and that's just not who I am. That's not how I was raised. The people that I'm friends with are not that way. So it gets very challenging to deal with on a day-to-day basis, people that you just don't like. Like, if I'm being quite frank, I just don't like a lot of people in the music business. So, some days are harder than others. Some days I have several phone calls that send me into that are triggering in different ways, dealing with men and this combative thing that they have with young women, young Black women who are just trying to do their thing in the music industry. Or, there's just so much misogyny and, lack of respect. So sometimes it gets taxing and you get worn down, and, you wonder if it's even worth it, especially when you're not making no money. So when it comes to quitting, yeah, I don't know if anyone in the music industry that has a heart has ever, has not thought about quitting or doesn't think about it often. I also feel like I could be successful in other fields if I just put my energy and time into something else. But what keeps me here, I really love music. I really love music. Like, you know, I have to bring myself back to the foundation of what I'm here for. And the people that I choose to work alongside are important to me as well. And we kind of just keep each other grounded and keep each other encouraged, to stay in this, because this is not for the faint of heart whatsoever. It's very, you find yourself disappointed often. People that you think are your friends, you learn a lot of times they're not. Um, and I've experienced a lot of heartbreak in this. I tell people all the time, I've cried more tears over things that have happened to me in the music industry than I've ever cried over any boyfriend, any relationship. Like, this has broken my heart time and time again. Um, but it builds character. And when you know that you're in it for the right reason, and especially as a Black woman in this business, and how like there isn't a lot of representation for us, that's what keeps me it keeps me in it, because I know that there are girls. I've opened my DMs all the time and there are like just young women in my DMs that are, inspired by the work that we do, and it helps keep them motivated. So that's what keeps me in it. I'm not in it for, the clout, or I don't think being in the industry really gives you clout. So many people in this industry are corny to me. It's like, this is I exist outside of the music industry. I'm not defined by my position in music. Like, I was cool before I got in music. I'll be cool if I ever decide to leave music. This is not the end all and be all for me, but it's something that I am grateful, um, that my life has led me to be involved in. And again, I'm proud of the work that we've done. And I feel like the game owes me some money, so I'm gonna stay in it until I see what I deserve. Being a woman in this business is absolutely challenging. We hear it all the time, and we know it to be true. This is a male dominated industry, just like most. I don't even know what industries we can think of that aren't male dominated, but it requires you have to know yourself. Like, you have to determine who you are in this earth, in the world, and show up in the music industry as your true self, and be willing, once again, to walk away from situations that make you feel compromised in any way. I think it's important to, again, be conscious of the people that you are aligning yourself with, the people that you're doing sessions with, the people that you are, you know, creating with, and do some vetting out. A lot of times I think we find ourselves blindly in situations with people that you don't really know, and you can't help that. It's a part of the process and the growing experience. But it, as a woman in this business in particular, I think you have to be very, very sure-footed in who you are and be willing to walk away from any situation that compromises who you are. And also, when necessary, check shit, period. Because when you're doing that, you're doing it for yourself, but also on behalf of the other women who have to operate in this business. Um, and things that go left unchecked continue to happen. So, shout out to all the women who decided to be in this thing, because it is very, very challenging for us. And I think it's important for us to unite with one another and encourage and uplift one another and be able to share with one another. Because you can feel there aren't enough of us, so it can feel like a lonely place. So we have to have our own communities where we're able to lean on each other for advice, and be able to share information, and you know um yeah, just love on each other, because the game doesn't love any of us, but they for sure do not love women. And we know that to be true. So yeah, loving yourself, self-love is a real thing when in life. So in your career, when you show up in this space too, just having a standard for what's acceptable around you and what's not, and holding people to that, and being willing to say goodbye to anything that doesn't fall within that, I think is super important. I think we have to stop compromising. I think we have to stop turning a blind eye to things that are blatantly happening in our faces because we are afraid to miss out on opportunity. When you recognize your value and what you bring to the table in any room that you come into, whether you are a manager, a publisher, an artist, a songwriter, producer, when you are adding value to a situation, then you are allowed to set a standard for what is allowed. And the more of us with integrity, with a moral compass, that are holding people accountable, and not sweeping things under the rug and acting like things that are, again, very blatantly happening are not happening because we're afraid to miss an opportunity. It's no, you're working with me. It's an opportunity for you to be working with me. So this is what is okay with me, and this is what is not. And if you can't adhere to that and that doesn't work for you, then we're just not gonna work together, and that's your loss, actually, because I'm dope. And I think that we'll start to filter out certain things when we know, all right, this person is absolutely doing this thing. There needs to be enough of us that come together and say, you know what, we're not working with them anymore. Period. Blackball, some real, yo, you're out. And actually, anybody who is still working with you is out too. That kind of accountability. We can't afford to keep turning a blind eye to these things anymore, or they'll continue to happen. And that's out. I touched on it earlier. Self-care. You have to take care of yourself in life. The music industry is a career, and a lot of us get so wrapped up in wanting to progress in that career and reach our goals. But the music industry isn't going anywhere. Um, there's no rush. Take your time, do it the right way. But in that, make sure that you are maintaining healthy habits. Make sure that you are taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit, because it's only going to accelerate your progress when you are well. The universe kind of tends to work around you when you start putting energy and focus on yourself and not chasing after this perceived thing that doesn't even really exist. It's like, no, you get to create your own reality within this. And I think once we really understand that to be true, the way that we all approach the music industry will change. I think the best piece of life advice, external circumstances, if you allow them to, can always rattle you. And, I know so many people that suffer from, especially in a time like this where there's so much going on in the world, anxiety and depression and all of these things that actually take place in the mind. I think the most important lesson that I've learned is to become observant of my thoughts. Um, Meditation has been something that I'm still working on, the practice, but being able to separate yourself from the external world and go within and get very clear on what you're here for, um, what your purpose is on in this existence, and like making sure you're centered and grounded in that and steeped in that, and then operating from that place as much as you can. Is something that I think we all need to do because we're all sent here for something. We all exist in this time for a purpose and for a reason. And the more clear that we get on that, and that has nothing to do we weren't sent here to be in the music industry. That's not a that's not a life purpose. Like, music is a tool to heal. It's a tool to inspire. And so we're showing up in this business and, creating, you know, music that is going to eventually go out into the world. There's 8 billion people in the world. There's no telling how many people you can touch with your message, with your creativity. So getting really clear on what you're here to do requires you going inside and not defining yourself by these external things. It's about getting clear on what you're here for. So I would say spending time alone, spending time with yourself and getting into your own purpose here will help you operate in life, not just in the music business, in life in a way that is purposeful and meaningful. And it makes for a better existence in my experience. I would tell my 20-year-old self, you are all right, girl. The older I get, the more I experience. I look back on things that used to just have me so rattled and so bothered 15 years ago when I was 20. I think if anything, I would go back and say, don't stress. You're good. You got this. You're fine. I promise. Um, so that we can exist and be in this life and actually enjoy this thing while we're here. So I'm currently reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself it's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One by Joe Dispenza. It's great. I'm also reading a book called Happy Money that talks about, the importance of money in our lives and how many of us have an unhealthy relationship with money based on how we were brought up or our experience with money, but how to use money in a way that leads to a happy life, because obviously being rich doesn't make you happy. Being poor doesn't make you happy. Happiness is something that is a choice. And money it talks about happy money and unhappy money and how we spend money in our relationship to money. And as people who, someone like myself who intends on being wealthy, I would like to have a healthy relationship with the money that I'm earning. So that's another book that I'm reading that I think is great. Happy Money.